And here in the nation's capital, Abuja, there's a call on the government to declare October 20 a National Freedom Day in honor of the ENDSARS protest. At an event to mark the second anniversary of the shooting at the Lekki toll gate, former Inspector General of Police Mike Okiro, who was represented by Ulo Vic Moro, called on President Muhammadu Buhari to give a presidential declaration for the day, October 20th, to serve as a Freedom Day, just like he declared June 12, Democracy Day, in honor of Moshood Kashimawo Olale Abiola, MKO.
Anytime I remember the ENDSARS, I feel a deep pain in my heart, looking at the way our young peaceful protesters were taking off the surface of this world, all in the name of fighting for a just country. As we speak, a lot of families are still in pains, mourning the loss of their beloved children who left their homes in solidarity for social justice, freedom, and for a better Nigeria. It is evidently clear that Nigerian youth are the most courageous and resilient set of people on the face of this earth. I feel very honored to be the leading voice for this year's advocacy call by a youth and national interest-based and human rights promotion organization called Nigeria First Foundation, aka Justice Now International, to seek for Your Excellency's declaration of October 20th as National Freedom Day.
Well, joining us now to have a conversation as the nation marks the second anniversary of the ENDSARS protest are Barrister Victor Giwa, who is a member of the ENDSARS panel and also a human rights lawyer, and also Arise News Deputy Director of News and Judiciary Editor. That's Toby Soniyi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight to have this conversation. Well, Barrister Victor Giwa, I want to start with you. Young Nigerians 2 years ago protested all across the country against one thing: police brutality. Would you say we have learned lessons, hard lessons from that protest? And would you say the Nigerian police force is better off today because of it, or not?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I want to also join various Nigerians to sympathize with persons who were killed, especially particularly on the 20th of October. And join Nigerians to also say that the youth must have a voice, there must be a reform in the Nigerian police force, and that the fundamental rights of Nigeria must be respected. But going straight to your question, firstly, we need to understand that the issue of the ENDSARS protest is as a result of a lot of accumulation of injustices, a lot of abuse of human rights, a lot of violation of human rights by members of the Nigerian police force. And if you don't mind, if you will notice that sometimes in 2022, as a build up to that protest, on the 4th of May 2022, it's a 27-year-old 500 student from Namda Zikwe was killed, in a beer parlor by a police officer. And on the 18th of May 2020, a young boy, the only child of a family, was chased by some police officers, and on the way, he was knocked out by a moving vehicle, moved to the hospital, and he died. June, 1 month after that same, after May, June 2nd, a young Okada rider in Adamawa State was shot dead because he refused to part with 100 naira to the police. And so that was what also fueled the crisis, the ENDSARS protest, and of course that was culminated on the 20th of October with the Lekki shooting. Now the question is, has there been any lesson for the Nigerian police force? No. As we are still talking to date, there are still a lot of abuse. Like you can see, they don't understand that the right to protest is a fundamental right of every Nigerian. It is contained in our constitution. It is contained in Africa Charter on Women's and People's Rights. It is contained in the United Nations Charter. The police don't see that as their right. Let me tell you, the right to protest is as good as your right to eat food. So it is not that the police is giving anybody privilege. It's not a privilege that you are protesting. It is a fundamental right that is given to you because you are human. It is contained in our laws. And so it is very unfair and it is very unjust that right now, as we are talking, our police have not learned from what happened in the entire protest, and it really shows that we have a long way to go in terms of observance of human rights. Okay,
Toby, Soniyi, I mean, what do you think, just looking at what happened today at the ground zero, like some would like to call it, the Lekki Toll Plaza, police firing tear gas and, of course, using water cannons. Same happened last year, the first anniversary or memorial of this protest. Would you say we've learned any lesson? And I want you to bear in mind that the protesters in 2020 did say this is not a fight against the Nigeria police force, but the brutality of some members of the force. Because I remember the first 5 demands put out. Number 5 was for the federal government to increase the salary of officers of the Nigeria police force.
I think we have not learned much, but I want to deviate a little. I think some lessons have been learned, but we haven't learned much. Why did I say that? At the root of this crisis is lack of accountability. The question is, has any police officer been prosecuted for all the crime enumerated by my learned colleague? And the answer is no. Nobody has been charged with any offense. There have been recommendations. You don't solve this problem by giving people money. It's good that we have given money. We have compensated some people. But we also need to charge the officers to court. And some that need to face the death penalty, face life imprisonment, or various years of imprisonment. It is when we begin to do that, that those other officers who are still on duty will know that if I do this, they will put handcuffs in my hand, charge me to court, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life in prison. Until we begin to do that, that will be the evidence that we have learned some lessons. It still appears that we are still treating it with levity. We are just, I mean, this is a short gap measure that, okay, we set up panel. And to some extent, this panel makes recommendation that people should be prosecuted. So why do we lack the courage to prosecute them? If we have learned any lesson at all, we need, so the prosecution should be going on now everywhere. We cannot end it by paying people. They are going to continue to do it, that if I kill this boy, the Lagos state government will pay the mother. So why will I stop killing? Until we begin to send errant police officers to prisons. I mean, they are not going to stop. So it's this lack of, when we talk of lack of accountability, it's obvious that we have not learned much, because we are not yet accountable to the people. Nobody is being prosecuted for the offense. So this is at the root of the matter. As long as we are not doing that, we are going to continue to see police brutality.
Well, Toby, you're saying it's beyond paying these compensations, even though we know at the end of the day, this family members, when the monies were given to them, some of them said at least this would help us have some sort of closure. But Victor Giwa, let me come to you right now. You were a lawyer who actually represented some at the panel here in Abuja, and they got some sort of compensation. But looking at what Benjamin Hundeyin did say, we saw police officers also get killed, about 37 of them, when the protest was eventually hijacked, and we saw the mayhem unleashed on Lagos State. So those officers, compensations, did any go to them, to their families?
Yeah, I think I could remember that a lot of, compensation. The IG set up a panel to look at those police officers that suffered, that died, some were maimed, injured, and all of that. And that is within the purview of the Nigerian police force. And I need to state this, that fundamental right is not just limited to civilians. It is everybody, that in as much as you are human. So the right also, the police, the security agencies have also their fundamental right. Of course, that so nobody is championing the assault on security officers like the police. I need to put that straight. Yeah, so they, within their own rank, I think they got some compensation by the Nigerian police force in terms of for the police force. Yes, I think they got.
But there were no police officers being represented during these panels all across the country. It was more for the civilians than the officers.
Yeah, the point was that it was to look at police brutality. So the panel was to look at the brutality by the Nigerian police force against harmless citizens.
Right.
So that was just the subject of the panel.
Okay, and Toby, when do we begin to have accountability? And I ask you this question because the Lagos State panel of investigation perhaps was the most covered, most focused for a lot of reasons. That panel did come out with over 30 recommendations, and the Lagos State government only admitted to 11 out of over 30 recommendations made. So how do we begin to have that accountability when there's no even admittance of what's on ground?
Well, thank you once again. You know, let me begin by reminding you that, look, the police we have in Nigeria is federal police. To a larger extent, I think the states are just being generous, choosing to agree to pay those money and compensating them, because the police are agents of the federal government. They are not necessarily the agent of the state. And I think ordinarily it is the federal government that should be held responsible, since we don't have state police. As to when do we begin to have accountability? Now, today, not even tomorrow. If a police, we don't need to wait until some people go to Lekki toll gate to protest before we begin to have accountability. If somebody called today that the policeman assaults me, the next day we should put machinery in motion to investigate and deal with that. We don't need to allow it to accumulate. It's because people believe they are not going to get justice. Many don't even report police brutality. If you are going home now, a policeman maltreats you, you are likely to just be going on your own. You are not going, you know what? If I call them, they are not going to do anything to him. As long as Nigerians keep going home believing that the police are above the law, we are not going to get there. So we should start accountability now. The police, there should be a hotline. They should make it easy to report erring police. They should make it easy to investigate. They should make it easy to prosecute. By the time the police themselves see that this thing are on ground, I'm sure they will advise themselves properly. Like I said, they are doing it because they are getting away with it. If I know that I killed someone, nobody is going to arrest me or punish me for doing so. Why do I stop killing? That is the problem. So they don't, I mean, we don't put machinery in place, you know. The IG, present IG, I must acknowledge, has been doing something. If he got videos, he has reports, or policeman does this, they summon and take action. But we need a holistic approach to accountability in the police. And there are so many literature, I must confess to you. Several NGOs, civil society organizations, they have submitted reports to the police. They know what to do. As long as they want to do it, they know what to do. But the Nigerian police, the Police Service Commission, the authority in government, they are not just ready to start holding policemen accountable. I'm sure if today they wake up and say, look, any policeman that misbehave will deal with you, and they show examples, I mean, other policemen will behave themselves. So we need to start accountability right now, not even tomorrow. It's too late. If you have started yesterday.
Well, we have seen some examples in recent times of misconduct, collecting bribe, and policemen were dismissed and removed.
Speedy trial. You know, we have to commend the Nigerian police for what they are doing so far, but at the end of the day, beyond even the ENDSARS and all of that, we have seen, you know, all sorts happen to try and clean up the Nigerian police force. And Victor Giwa, let me bring you in here. Well, all across the country, 28 panels of inquiry were actually established, you know, to look into police brutality. Would you say so far some recommendations that were taken, we've seen them, would you say we've seen them being implemented that would lead to a better policing of the citizen in Nigeria? And also married that with the fact that some are calling for the renaming of the Lekki toll gate to a Lekki Memorial. What do you make of that?
Well, thank you very much. One of the things I need to underscore here is the fact that like before the panel, especially that of Lagos, was set up, at least I engaged we engaged some of the authorities that firstly, no state have the power, the jurisdiction to investigate the activities of the Nigerian police force, just like my colleague there said, because the Nigerian police force is an agent of the federal government. So I was, you know, advising them at that point, that no state has the power to set up a panel to investigate, the activity of the agency of a federal government. So the only panel that has the power is National Human Rights Commission. And so we participated in National Human Rights Commission panel that was set up here in Abuja. And so it was the panel that in Abuja that gave compensation for other states. Like, let me not mention the state. They will not be able to compensate because, like he rightly mentioned, the police force are not under the states. So there's no way they would have made that provision. The government wanted to justify it when they said that the vice president during the National Economic Council meeting. And the vice president cannot take such decision for various state governments to set up a panel because that is for economy. The highest body you could have spoken about would be the Federal Executive Council. So the police and agent of the federal government, it's only the federal government that can look at the activities of the police and provide compensation for. So that is why we are not seeing compensations coming from the various state government because they didn't have a budget for it, they didn't plan it. So there was no way they are going to bring up, money to compensate, for those activities of the Nigerian police force in various states. So I think the federal government should look into it, that Attorney General should look at how compensations can be made, to all the victims of police brutality in all the states and not for the state government.
And the memorial being renamed?
Yeah, that should be done. Of course, that is one of the recommendations that came up, and that should be taken seriously.
Thank you so much, Victor Giwa, a legal practitioner who was also a member of the ENDSARS panel and human rights lawyer, like I said, here in Abuja, as well as Arise Deputy Director of News and Judiciary Editor Toby Soniyi. We thank both of you for sharing your thoughts and analysis on this issue.